Good evening, everybody. It is 6:08 p.m. here, Central Time, United States, and there are so many crazy, insane things happening in the world. May 27th, this Tuesday. People are dying, babies are getting born, new conflicts are popping up everywhere. I learned just today that there are actually 59 kinetic conflicts between separate countries going on all around the world. I only know about three of them, but we don't care about any of that, do we, Smokey?
Not one bit.
And why is that? Why don't we care?
We've got philosophy.
Damn straight we do. This is Smokey's Philosophy Corner, and we're here reading Aristotle's categories. But before we move on to the next phase of the next part that we're reading, Smokey and I wanted to cover something. We got some really great feedback in an email from 2 episodes ago when we were talking about uh, uh, the predicability of certain traits and when we're creating categories and how we look at form and function in order to try to be predicable about other traits, we extended that from the paper to talk about penguins and how birds are winged and yet penguins are birds. What is that? What's going on there? And what we realized was from the email, the viewer was making the claim that the particular extension that we made, uh, it wasn't applying very good science from everything that we've learned up until today. And that was very true. We didn't apply evolutionary history in particular in any way. And he's right about that. Smokey had the opinion that every single time we make any extension from the paper, we're going to be running into problems like these because we're going to try to take away our understanding of modernity and we're trying to read the paper as it is in the context of the time and the culture and the general scientific understanding and development that was the time that the person authored the paper. In my position, I like both of those things. I like being aware of both those things. And I think that we always want to continue making extensions from outside of the paper to help better our understanding of what we're reading. But we we also want to keep those extensions pretty simple. We maybe not look at subgenres of species that might be a little complex when we're actively putting like tying one hand behind our back, so to speak. So we're going to be more careful with those kinds of extensions moving forward. And yeah, we're going to keep pushing along. Smokey, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, 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 nope. I like it. There was conflict and resolution. Synthesis, antithesis, synthesis. I'm sorry, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Hegel would be proud.
You got there eventually, yeah. Hegel
Yes.
would be proud, but Hegel does not exist when we
Hegel
start.
does not exist in the world of Aristotle. You are correct. See, I did it
Um,
again.
but yeah, no, I want to thank the viewer who sent over that email. We definitely want as much feedback as possible. It was really, really good feedback, and it definitely helps us become a little more centered in how ambitious we want to be with our extensions when we're also not going to be applying all of the science that we know and understand in the modern day as we read something that's literally thousands of years old. With that, I think we should move on to the next part. What are we covering today, Smokey?
Today we are in part five. This is where, as I mentioned in the last recording, things start getting a little hairier. And as I also mentioned last time, Aristotle never comes out and says, here are the categories. He's not making definitive statements. He's simply leading the reader along using a little bit of logic, but really using philosophy to say, does this make sense to you?
Hmm.
And so we're in part five, and we're sort of in the okay, here's the predicament. Here's the problem. Here is how we start to think about not just what are categories, but how do we view them and how do we create them and how do we see them? All of this rolled up into one. It's not separated, which makes it kind of difficult to read.
Right.
And if you remember last week, he said there are 10 non-composite uh, things to consider. Yes?
Yeah.
Expression. He called them expressions,
At one
substance,
point, yeah, he called them expressions. Yeah.
Substance, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, position, station, action, and affection. And
That's right.
what he's going to start doing now is he's going to start breaking down each of those 10
Okay.
and talking about each one either individually or in some form of combination.
So today we're just talking about substance, and we're
Today, and probably for the next two, three, maybe four more discussions, we just
okay.
talk about substance.
That's a lot of coverage on substance. Let's do it.
Yep. All right, here we go. Uh, Part 5, Section 1, Aristotle's categories. Substance, in the truest and primary and most definite sense of the word, is that which is neither predicable of a subject nor present in a subject. For instance, the individual man or horse. But in a secondary sense, those things are called substances within which, as species, the primary substances are included. Also, those which, as genera, include the species. For instance, the individual man is included in the species man, and the genus to which the species belongs is animal. These, therefore, that is to say, the species man and the genus animal, are termed secondary substances. It is plain from what has been said that both the name and definition of the predicate must be predicable of the subject. For instance, man is predicted of the individual man. Now, in this case, the name of the species man is applied to the individual, for we use the term man in describing the individual. And the definition of man will also be predicated of the individual man, for the individual man is both man and animal. Thus, both the name and the definition of the species are predicable of the individual. With regard, on the other hand, to those things which are present in a subject, it is generally the case that neither their name nor their definition is predicable of that in which they are present. Though, however, the definition is never predicable, there is nothing in certain cases to prevent the name being used. For instance, white being present in a body is predicated of that in which it is present, for a body is called white. The definition, however, of the color white is never predicable of the body.
Okay. That's a
Thus,
lot.
ending the reading. Yes, and this is why we are taking this in bite-sized pieces. And this is
So
what we got to go all the way back to the beginning. What are the three types? How do we define things? What are the three ways?
we have the univocal, you have
Yep.
the equivocal, and you have the derivative.
Yep. And so
Um,
these, we got to be thinking about this. So
yeah.
if we come back to the beginning, it says substance in the truest and primary and most definite sense of the word is that which is neither predicable of a subject nor present in a subject. So
Right.
if we think about it, what he's saying is the thing that makes you what you are doesn't define you
Right.
and is not necessarily present in you.
Right.
But in a secondary sense, those things are called substances within which, as species. So if I go up a level, remember and then he started talking about hierarchies. So now we've got a hierarchy.
Hmm.
They are present and predicable at the hierarchical level. Species
Right.
and genus.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And then moving forward from that, yeah. So basically, he's just identifying, the role that substance plays, um, in the transference from different levels of category. From the like a species to or from a genus to a species, and then down into an individual. And then Well, there's one part that here, hold on. It is plain from what has been said that both the name and the definition of the predicate must be predicable of the subject. So when he says the predicate here, what does he mean by that?
For
What is he
instance,
referring to as of the
for,
predicate?
yeah, man is predicted of the individual man. See, this is not a science lesson.
Right.
This is a language arts lesson.
Right. Yeah. But man would be a substance here, right?
Yes. But when we use the word man, we're talking about we can be talking about multiple things. We can be talking about man as a species or man as an individual.
No, I get that, but when he's saying that, like, there's something that I'm missing here because the first sentence is that the substance is not predicable of the. Can you scroll up? What was the exact words that he used? And the truest and primary and most definite sense of the word is that which is neither predicable of a subject nor present in a subject.
So if man is the substance,
Right.
it is not predicable of an individual, nor is it present in an individual.
Oh, but then reverse engineering it going backwards, that's when it becomes predicable.
Yes.
Now I understand. Okay. I get that.
And we are keeping modernity out of this conversation.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he keeps using biology here, which is always really annoying. Um, but I understand what we're saying now. Because like if you're to try to describe a thing, if I say, look at that thing, and then you say, what is that? And then like I start describing certain parts of it for you. I say, look at that. That is like this element, and that is like this feature. What do you think it is? And then you go, oh, those things that you just described are predicable of this type of thing. So I must be
Yes.
looking at A, X, Y, Z.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
Are we ready for just a couple of little slides?
Let's take a look. Let's take a peek here.
All right, let's see if I can get this to work any quicker. Probably not. Come on. It's supposed to work. Why aren't you work? So there I was in the Congo.
That'll
Here we
be
go.
our next series is Bear in the Congo.
Ah,
I
bears don't do well in the Congo.
can imagine.
It's
We'll
it's
have to
too.
share that story later.
Yeah, yeah. We overheat pretty easily. Can you see the slides?
I can.
All right, so here we go. Section one, part five. So basically, the first couple of paragraphs are in this little slide. So I can say that there's an individual man. That is the most definite, the individual, the man.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I can't use it to predict man, a species.
Okay.
And I can't use it to predict animal because the arrows are going down, not up.
Right.
And therefore, the substance is present and predicable. So if there is a substance in an animal, it has to be present and it has to be predicable of a species or an individual subject.
Okay.
And if there's a substance in the species, it must be present and it must be predicable of the individual man.
Right.
And I am trying not to move forward and introduce modernity into this conversation. But there is an interesting concept in statistics that comes to mind while we are discussing this that I will not introduce at this point.
Okay. Yeah. Just dangle that over there. Actually, name it. What's the name of this concept?
Measurement design.
Okay. Well, if you're listening, feel free to Google measurement design, learn about it a little bit, see if you can make the connection between this slide and what Aristotle's talking about here and what we do presently measurement design. And if you see anything that's really cool, or if you think you draw any connections, leave a comment below, please.
And in fact, I'll give you a little more information. Oh my goodness.
Careful.
It
That
is the
might be enough. Don't get greedy here.
Yeah, yeah, the bear is going to have an aneurysm. There are four levels of measurement in generally held in measurement design, and there is a paper that was published in the 1940s. S.S. Thompson,
Okay.
quote me on that, but it was around 1946, 1942, somewhere around there. And
Just take note also when you say 1940s and then you say SS and you just leave it there.
yeah, well,
Just
the
be
bear's
careful
not
with that as
very
well.
political.
Yeah, that's
His
fair.
initials were SS, not,
Gotcha.
and he was not German. He was English, I believe, if I'm not
Oh, okay.
mistaken.
Okay.
Uh,
Stormtrooper Thompson. Very
so,
cool.
so it only took about 2,200 years to get from what Aristotle is writing here
Hmm.
for us to define and describe this concept of measurement design that most people now take for granted, especially
Okay.
those of us in the sciences.
Yeah, I'll probably do this after this video as well. I'm probably going to do a quick Google and see if I can find see what about measurement design is predicable of Aristotelian methodology. That'll
Yep.
be pretty fun.
So that takes care of those first two paragraphs, and then we got one slide for this last paragraph.
What do we got here?
And he said, to those things which are present in a subject, it is generally the case that neither their name nor their definition is predicable of that in which they are present. Though, however, the definition is never predicable, there is nothing in certain cases to prevent the name being used.
Okay, gotcha. So basically, there's not necessarily any way to speak the subject and then to be able to discern the use case of that subject without it no like without adding other stuff to it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So here's a man, a subject. Here's a man, species.
Right.
Is this man over here physically? Can you see him?
I don't know. Not necessarily. No.
I don't see him because he's got on looks like a green and blue sweater, and I don't see any green and blue.
Oh, literally. Yeah. No, he's not there. Yeah.
He's not there. But can I say, based on the characteristics in species for man, looks like right? I can use that to make a prediction about this individual.
Sure. Yeah.
And that is what that third paragraph is saying.
I understand that. Okay. That makes sense.
Aristotle is big into hierarchies.
Right.
And we won't talk about that. It's just I would caution people when they create hierarchies.
Sure, sure, sure. And yeah, we definitely won't talk about that. Let's go back to the first slide real quick here,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Okay, so I want to apply what we've been reading about, univocal, equivocal, and derivative definitions,
Certainly.
right? To this part that we have so far here. If I had to guess, when we're looking at this through the lens of genre, species, and subject, man is defined equivocally here.
Yes.
Okay. Um, and then the individual man is defined univocally. That's
Yes.
a univocal definition for every single individual man,
Yes.
right? And then there's not a necessarily really good example of derivative,
Nope.
but it did occur to me that arguably one could say, based off of what Aristotle wrote initially, that man, the definition of man, the species, is derivative of the definition of man, the subject.
Go the other way.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, the opposite way. Sorry, that man, the subject, the definitionally, that's a derivative definition of man, the species.
Nope.
And the name man derived from the name man. And
Nope.
they
Nope. Nope.
just didn't
Nope.
make any
So
changes to the name.
close. So close.
Are you sure?
I mean, you've made your case. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. If you're
Well, okay,
looking
real
for
quick, just let me add one more. So like to be manly that's the definition and the naming of manly. That's derivative of man,
okay.
right? Just to
Yeah.
make sure I'm understanding. Okay. And then man, the subject is derivative of man, the species, and they just didn't there's just no change to the name.
Okay.
one derived from the other.
And and that's not a bad argument. I'm not saying you're
Okay.
right. I'm not saying
Sure,
you're
sure.
wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying this is a perfect example of translation issues.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. They probably didn't do the same thing in ancient Greek.
Yes. Think about what
Makes
is
sense.
the Greek
Yeah.
word for animal?
I don't know. What
Well,
is the
my,
Greek word for animal?
or
Okay.
do we have to take away your Greek card?
Take it easy, bro. Take it easy. All right. Didn't Hercules kill one of you? Or be careful. Uh, Translation. Sorry about the dead space, guys. Give us 1 second. I'm actually really
I threw him
curious.
a curveball. This is entirely my fault.
I might actually edit out like the time
No,
that.
don't do that. To me, this is the beauty of learning. This is the beauty of philosophy, is we all come to the discussion with incomplete knowledge.
Right.
And learning to deal with that sense of ambiguity is probably one of the most difficult things that we learn to deal with um, as we develop.
Right. Okay. So, in ancient Greek, the general word for animal was, I actually don't know how to, maybe zoion? Zoion.
And what was the Greek word for man?
Yeah. That would be.
And could they be related?
I'm looking for different ones here.
Well, that is part of the
Oh,
problem.
for man, obviously you have aner, and then anthropos, which is where we get, anthropology. Um, yeah, no, these aren't derivative from each other grammatically speaking at all. So,
Yes.
okay. All right, that's a good point. That's fair.
Well, because when we name things, what we and you're right, I agree completely with your supposition that you stated earlier that hey, I can look at man as a species and then derive man the individual from it
Hmm.
and saying if you're manly, you have the characteristics of the species man, therefore you are manly, or now we just say man.
Right,
That's a legitimate argument, but that is an argument based on modern linguistics.
right, which is not how this was organized at all. So,
Correct. So you did make a derivative definition. I completely agree. But you applied it to a manuscript over 2,000 years old.
fuck.
That's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was a little bit of an oopsies. We'll call it a rookie mistake. Um, Well, dang, yeah. This was a lot easier for me to wrap my mind around than I was afraid of, which is really good to start, especially now that we're getting more into uh, the weeds. Which, as you've noticed, I am having to be less reliant on examples as we move forward because
Good,
we should have more stuff to grab onto. It's
good,
so nice.
good, good,
Uh,
good.
yeah, so I'm really looking forward to the next space. Is there anything else you want to cover or share with the people before I let us go?
No, I'm gonna head back, grab my pot of honey,
Nice,
sit in my cave.
cool.
You have a
Thank you
good
for that.
week.
Good, very good. Everybody, please leave a comment if you have anything to share. Take a look at design measurements and look into that. See how it compares to what we covered here, and see if you can find anything with that. That'd be really cool. Share your findings, like and subscribe when you get the chance, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.